This episode of the Lawn Care Business Success Podcast is brought to you by Gorilla Lift, the trailer tailgate lift assist. Thanks to this revolutionary and patented product, your heavy trailer tailgate can be raised and lowered with virtually no effort. It'll work on open utility trailers with side rails between 12 inches and 24 inches tall and tailgates between 4 feet and 6 feet tall. Helps prevent costly injuries and property damage and saves time and money. For more information, go check them out at lawncarebusinesssuccess.com/Gorilla Lift. You're listening to the Lawn Care Business Success Podcast, the weekly show sharing proven methods and systems in marketing, equipment, and customer service, educational and motivational, to help make your lawn care business an overwhelming success. Now here's your host, Julio Tomei. Welcome, Lawn Care Nation, to another episode of the Lawn Care Business Success Podcast. I'm your host, Julio Tomei, and this is episode number 122, entitled, Are You Getting in the Way of Your Own Success? Well, hello, everybody, and thanks again for joining me this week on another episode of the Lawn Care Business Success Podcast. I really appreciate you guys tuning in each and every week and downloading those episodes as usual. Like I say, I really do appreciate the ongoing support, as well as the questions and comments that come in on a weekly basis. It's fantastic to, when you're doing something like this, putting in the time and the effort to get that feedback back is very important. And I really do appreciate the time that you guys have taken to either leave iTunes reviews or to message me directly on Instagram or to email me through the website at lawncarebusinesssuccess.com/contact, and just letting me know your thoughts on the podcast, giving me show suggestions or even guest suggestions of people that I should reach out to this coming off season as we near the end of this mowing season. I plan to get back into doing a lot more of the interview episodes throughout that off season, as it's obviously a lot easier to coordinate times with guys to interview. So if you have suggestions that you would have or have thought about for the podcast, of topics you want me to cover, or people that you think would make great interviews, or if you yourself would like to do an interview episode and you have a lawn care business, maybe drop me a line and let me know a bit about yourself, your business. And we can maybe coordinate something. So this week, if you're listening to the podcast this week, on its actual release date of October the 17th, 2017, then it's a big week for the lawn care industry, as it's GIE week. So GIE kicks off this week on Thursday, officially Thursday and Friday, I believe, with Wednesday being sort of, I think, the actual exhibitors sort of day. I haven't been to GIE in the past. I'm unfortunately not able to make it this season, or this year, I should say. My hopes are to be able to get out there and experience it for 2018. That's the current plan, at least, but we'll see how it goes. I hope that you guys who are attending really take it in, enjoy yourselves. If you get to meet some of the guys that you look up to in the industry, I think that is the key part about GIE, is the being able to connect with other guys that you may be interacting with on social media. It's a great opportunity for that. I'd like to thank Lawn Care Rookie. We all know Lawn Care Rookie. This guy, Naylor, has put in so much time and effort over the past year, almost since, I don't know for sure, but it seems like right after last year's GIE, he was already working on plans for this year's GIE and setting up the whole after party. And finding a new, larger location for it from the pizza place that they were doing it at, that was originally started by Geek to Freak. And getting this sort of taking on the helm and running with it. He's started a spin-off brand, LCR Media, to sort of get to the the front of the helm of this whole after party, and he's just put in a tireless effort over the past year. So if you are heading out to the GIE, if you run into Naylor, really show him some appreciation for the time and effort over the past year of putting together this after party for you guys. It's going to be, I'm not even going to be there. It's probably the saddest part for me is thinking about that after party and, getting to, hang out with all of these guys that, I watch on YouTube here from, across the other side of the country, that, I talk to, and like I say, it's probably the saddest part for me to think what I'm missing out. It's great to see the new equipment and see it all under one roof. That's all fantastic. Of course, we all love to geek out with the different tools and equipment that we use in our lawn care businesses, in our trades. But, to be around the people that you look up to is, just a fantastic opportunity to get everybody from across the country, from across different countries, even all in one place. So I would say, like I said, if you run into Naylor, Lawn Care Rookie, just give him a high five or something. Tell him that Julio from the Lawn Care Business Success podcast says thank you for all of the tireless effort he has put in to setting up the after party. And also on a final note regarding GIE, if you guys are traveling, whether you're traveling, just across town or across the country, I wish all of you guys, a great time at GIE, and hope that all of you guys have safe travels and are, that nothing happens unexpectedly, and that everything goes smoothly for everyone there, and everyone has a great time together. And hopefully I will see you guys there next year. So for this episode, number 122, I wanted to talk about, are you getting in the way of your own success? Are you self-sabotaging yourself? I've been listening to, as you guys know, I'm a huge fan of podcasts, and I listen to them on a daily basis with my ISOtunes while I'm working. And, it's, I've been listening to a lot of different ones, and there's, the sort of reoccurring theme of this has popped up, which made me sort of think about this a bit more. And sort of self-examining some of the things you do, some of the actions that you take that you may not even think that you're doing. I've heard, some comments, or I've read some comments on people's either their YouTube channels or on sort of live feeds and stuff. When you see, say, a YouTuber who is putting out a bunch of videos And, you'll get this comment of, I don't know how these guys make so many videos, or how they find the time to make so many videos. I'm too busy actually working. I've heard this as a reoccurring sort of theme. And it's, a bit disappointing, because it's not so much that it's a disparaging remark, that they're somehow trying to make it seem like, this person who's putting out this content, isn't, doesn't have a proper business or something. I'm not sure even what the point is, but it's more of a self-sabotaging sort of comment. Because if you think about it, everybody's time is equal. If there's something that you want to do, whether it's do a podcast or be a YouTuber and put out YouTube videos, and, and this is just an example, or run a lawn care business, you will find the time for your priorities. A lot of people say that they don't have the time. And that's just ridiculous, because you will make time if you are disciplined. That is the key, is being disciplined in doing those things every day that you need to get done. I'll give you an example. It's been a crazy October here. The grass, if you guys follow me on Instagram, you'll see that the grass is growing insanely. The rain season has started. I had fertilized the lawns in September. Things are just taking off. They're green. It's lush. The mower is clogging because it's so thick and lush on a weekly basis. I made a comment on a post recently on Instagram that it feels like spring again, because the temperature it hasn't quite started. It's dropped a little bit, obviously, compared to summer, but it's not, in that freezing point yet. So, during the day it's comfortable, but you're getting that rain constantly, and things are just growing like gangbusters here. And so it's been really, really busy. And I've found it difficult on top of the mowing. I have clients that are asking me to do all these other jobs. Now, most of you guys know that I've condensed my mowing route. I only actually do lawn mowing on Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Thursdays. I leave Mondays and Fridays to do all of the other jobs that my business provides. So that's the prunings, the aerating, not the fertilizing, because I'll do the fertilizing on a mowing day because it's pretty quick to do. But hedge trimming, power washing, anything that I have talked about, gutter cleaning, all those types of jobs that I have talked about on this podcast, I will do on Mondays and Fridays. And I found this to work for me, at least, because with long weekends and family commitments and things like that, it would throw a wrench into the mowing schedule. If I was mowing on a regular Monday, I'd have to move everybody back a day because my family would want to, go camping or do something on a long weekend. So it would throw things out of whack, and I'd have to push. And for the most part, for the first few years, I had it all under control. But I found, as I condensed my route more and more, and most of my customers were closer and closer together, that I was able to do more lawns in less time, and was able to actually cut one day of mowing off my schedule completely and still service that same amount of clients in just 3 days because of the routes being so tight and dense. So this brings us to, a month like October here, September, October. The leaves are starting to fall. I've got this list of things of jobs that clients want me to do that are not mowing related, whether they're pruning or cleaning out flower beds or mulch or, whatever the case may be. And traditionally I record the podcast if I don't have a lot going on, depending on the time of year. I'll take, part of the Monday off, the Monday morning or something like that, and do the podcast recording then. But I've been finding, like I said, it being very, very difficult. And I set that discipline, that priority to always have a podcast episode released every Tuesday morning. So you find the time to do it. So what I've been doing lately now is, I wake up in the morning, have breakfast. I will, drive my daughter to school, and I get back home. And traditionally there I would, just hang out, having, a coffee and, just taking my time getting ready for work. I don't usually leave for work until 9 a.m. And I would just, take some time. But on those days, because it's now, okay, yes, I'm in this routine, I'm comfortable doing my morning the way I do it. But it's like, okay, well, I need to get all these jobs done. And, I could do them on this Monday morning. I could fit in an extra job there if I'm not doing the podcast. So why not squeeze the podcast in that morning hour that I have between when I drop off my daughter? I could come home quickly and get a podcast recorded. I won't be able to edit it or anything, but at least I can record it while the house is quiet and nobody's home. I can record the raw audio, and then later on in the evening, I could edit it. And it doesn't matter that the house is noisy and that, I can sit there with some headphones on and edit the audio and put it in, together as an actual podcast episode. So you find the ways because you've set that discipline. You have that discipline. You've set that priority that this needs to be done. If you want to do YouTube videos and you have a full slate of work to do, the only excuse is yourself, is just not setting it as a priority. And I don't say this to scold anyone or anything like that, because I've done the exact same thing. I want to, grow my YouTube channel for this podcast. And I want to have more on the YouTube channel than just, the audio versions of the podcast episodes. And I'll tell you, the only thing getting in my way from that is the limitations I set on myself. I'm pretty famous, to myself at least, for making excuses on why I can't get things done. And it's a lot of the times it's, I don't have the right camera, or I don't have the right lighting, or I don't have the right microphone. And, I'll make these excuses to myself and think, I'll start doing it when I get that. And I'll procrastinate and, get on Amazon or something like that and start researching microphones and cameras and things like that instead of actually just doing it. And the ironic thing about this is that with the podcast, I took a completely different approach. When figuring out how to do a podcast, I listened to countless podcasts on how to make a podcast and everything you needed to do. And one of the most important pieces of advice that I took to heart, well, there was two. One of them was consistency. Be consistent. Do the podcast. If you say set a day of when you're going to do it, of when it's going to be released, and stick to it. And put one out if you're, doing a weekly podcast, then you put one out every single week. Now, how does this relate to your lawn care business? Well, it's the same thing. If you're looking for new clients and, what's standing in your way of that? A lot of you guys will make excuses well, I'm not in the right area. Well, it's not the right time of year. Well, it's, whatever reason. I used to do, I think I've told the story before with the lawn care side of it, of how I hated going door to door, putting my postcards and flyers down. And it didn't feel comfortable to me. So I didn't like doing it. But I found that if I forced myself, to go and do it, that it was fine once I started doing it. I think I even told a story once about how, I knew I had to go and do this, but I would drive around neighborhood after neighborhood looking at these areas, but I would never actually stop and get out and start putting my flyers door to door. And like I say, for one, I was super shy. I would feel embarrassed to do it. There was a whole list of these barriers and self-limiting excuses that I put on myself to why I wasn't getting it done. But like I say, once I would finally force myself to park the car and get out and walk to the first house, and then the second house, and then the third house, then it wasn't an issue. Then I could go and walk door to door for a few hours putting out flyers. And it was like, okay, well, why was that such a big deal? And, I would see clients in their driveways and things, or potential clients in their driveways, and I would talk to them. It wasn't a big deal. And, I would have this anxiety at times of going up to somebody's driveway if they were in the driveway, because I was so shy. And, but then I felt, well, I'm going to feel really stupid if I go along this block and this person's watching me going door to door, and then I skip their house and go to the thing just because they're outside and I want to avoid talking to them face to face. There's so many limiting things in your mind. If you want to do something, then you have to just take those first steps and do it. Discipline, like I said, I believe I have an episode on discipline, but it really is the key. It is just making the decision and putting it in your mind that this is what I want to do. And after that, you just figure out the steps required to do it. I heard another podcast this week where they mentioned that, you just have to figure out the first step. And if you don't know what the first step is, then you just figured out the first step, because the first step is figuring out what the first step is. So it's kind of ironic, kind of funny, but it's absolutely true. And that's how a lot of people will get stuck on that aspect of it, of what is that first step? What do I need to do? What is that first step? So I'm just going to break for the podcast announcements, and we'll get back right into it right after this. So stay tuned. Hey guys, if you have any questions or comments about the show, I'd love to hear from you. You can head on over to lawncarebusinesssuccess.com/contact. And while you're there, why not join my mailing list and get access to a free PDF document of a landscape maintenance contract you can feel free to copy and use in your own business. For you Instagram users out there, be sure to follow me at Lawn Care Business Success. And if you haven't checked out my videos yet, well, what are you waiting for? Be sure to subscribe to the Lawn Care Business Success YouTube channel. Now, I know you guys love listening to audio while you work as much as I do, so I've partnered up with Audible to offer you guys a free 30-day trial and one free audiobook of your choice. There's no long-term commitments, and you can cancel anytime. And get this, even if you cancel during the trial period, you get to keep your free audiobook. It's a great way to try the service and see if Audible is right for you. So why not give it a try? Head on over to lawncarebusinesssuccess.com/audible. Now back to the show. Okay, so before the break there, I was talking about the discipline of making the decision about doing something. And like I said, I've heard in the past people, commenting about, how a particular YouTuber in the lawn care space has the time to do these videos, and that this person or whatever, and it's no one specific. I've heard this multiple times from other people that they actually work. They don't have time for that. And the thing is that you find the time, you make it a priority that you need to record video and get it done and put it together and put out a video. It doesn't have to be long. It doesn't have to be complicated. It doesn't have to be fancily edited. And I've seen the trend more and more of guys, stepping away from the whole fancy editing and all that stuff and just making it work, just getting the content out there. So you make the decision and you will find ways when you set it as a priority, you will find ways to get it done. Now, like I said, for me, I've made tons of excuses on the YouTube video side. And I think it, again, stems from the whole sort of being camera shy and that sort of thing. I've been, I'm very comfortable now sitting behind the microphone. And I'm sure you can hear that. But like I said, when I was listening to how to start a podcast and those types of podcasts on making my podcast, that, piece of advice about consistency was the first part. Now let me get to that second piece of advice that was also very important. And that is don't worry about the actual quality or getting it perfect. Just put it out there. And that the quality will come. And the, comfortability, if that's a word, will come as well. And that, some of these podcast guys that I've listened to and that I look up to, like huge podcasters that have, hundreds of thousands of downloads for each of their episodes, are, saying the same thing and saying that, in the beginning that their podcasts were terrible, that they were so uncomfortable, but they just did it. You record it, you edit it, you put it out there, and you don't look back. You just look forward to the next one. And like I say, it's funny because I followed that advice. If you listen to my very first episode, then my second episode, they're strung with mistakes, and you can tell or hear the nervousness in my voice at times. And over the course of 2 years, doing it on a weekly basis, it, of course, has gotten easier. It's like anything. If you're using a line trimmer for the first time, you're going to have scalp marks. You're going to have a very awkward technique. You'll probably be very inefficient. And the more and more you do it, the easier it becomes until it's second nature. Edging a sidewalk with a line trimmer can take tons and tons of practice. And I'm not going to say after 12 years, I can do it blindfolded, of course, because that would be impossible. But I can do it very efficiently. And for the most part, you'll look at it and you will not be able to tell the difference between an edge that I can do with a line trimmer versus a blade edge. And the only time now that I actually take a blade edger with me is on a property that is overgrown and, hasn't been edged in a long time. But obviously the practice, the consistency of doing it over and over again, your skill level becomes greater and greater. And, it comes with anything. So, going back to the YouTube part, it's funny that with me and the experience of doing a podcast and, just putting it out there in the beginning and letting myself get comfortable over every single episode and just getting it done and not worrying about it and just moving on to the next one and just improving each and every time that I do it. How knowing that, and yet when I try to transition to doing YouTube videos, I have all the same anxieties of, not feeling comfortable in front of the camera, feeling embarrassed about recording with the camera and what people out there looking at me might think of me when I'm recording, when I'm, maybe working and, I have talking into a camera, and stuff like that. And for the most part, a lot of the times when I'm doing, not all the time, but a lot of the times with some of the videos and some of the footage that I've done it sort of incognito, where I'll have the GoPro, hidden, on my trailer somewhere, where people don't see it, or I'll do the recording in somebody's backyard, where I feel more comfortable because of the privacy. And still, talking on camera is strange for me. And it's not because I feel uncomfortable talking to the camera, because obviously I can sit here in front of a microphone and talk for hours on end now. And it's quite funny when you think about where or how I started, or how far I've come as far as, the podcast goes. But it's more it's a different situation. When I'm doing the podcast, I'm in a room in my house. There's nobody home. And, I've got the blinds closed on my window because I sort of like being in the dark when I'm doing it. And, there's nobody watching me. And there's nobody listening to me while I'm recording live. And that gives me a sort of, security blanket, you might say. Whereas when you're doing YouTube videos, especially when you're doing them out mowing, I set up these excuses because I'm worried about what people think, because I don't have that security blanket of being by myself in the dark with nobody watching. It's out in the open. You're on somebody's lawn. You're out on the street. You're talking into a camera. People might be overhearing what you're saying, even though they may not even be around. It might be a neighbor in the next yard or something like that. And, I play these games with myself, and it's just all excuses. When I think about the difference with the podcast, setting that schedule of having that discipline of saying, okay, I'm going to release a podcast episode every Tuesday, I And, and you would get this feedback from people saying, I just listened to such and such an episode and I really got, this value from it. Or, I just discovered your podcast and I've listened to every episode and, it's helped me so much. Or, I'm launching my lawn care business this spring and, I've been binge listening to all these episodes and, I've learned all these valuable lessons. And you get that feedback. It drives you, obviously, to want to continue. And because of that discipline of setting out the day, you overcome the obstacles. And you find the time. During the summertime, my, wife is at home, and my kids are at home for the whole summer. And it becomes more and more difficult to record the podcast during the summer months through July and August because they're at home. And I used to ask them to leave. And, they would oblige and they would go out for coffee or go out to the store or go for a walk or do something to leave me at home alone so that I would be in the quiet to be able to record a podcast, because normally throughout the year they're at work and school and I can pick a time and day like, a Monday or a Friday, and record the podcast when I'm home alone. But this year was different because I started to feel bad about always asking them to be quiet or asking them to leave or trying to work around, a schedule of, okay, they're doing this week. Maybe I can record the podcast on that day when they're away, or, I wouldn't join them for a certain family activity because I'd be like, okay, I'm going to take that opportunity to record the podcast when you guys are gone instead of enjoying that family time with them. So what I did differently this year was, instead of making excuses or looking at the obstacles as, well, I can't do it because, they're home, I found a different solution. And that was, I would go into the garage, I would sit in my wife's car, and I would use a handheld Tascam digital recorder. One of these handheld recorders with like the two built-in condenser mics on the top, and I would hold it super steady in one hand without moving it for the full hour that I'd be talking. I'd have my arm propped up on an armrest while I'm sitting inside my wife's car, inside the garage, while my family's inside the house doing whatever they're doing. Either they're watching TV or, listening to music or whatever they're doing. And I would find the quiet in the garage. And, in the next room, there'd be, my fancy podcasting microphone and, the computer and all that stuff that I normally go and do the podcast on. But instead of making excuses about why I can't do it or giving up family time in the evening when you would normally do something together, and instead of staying behind to record the podcast, I found, well, what if I just do it now? I've got time. Yes, they're home, but I'll just go into the car. I'll go into the garage, I'll go into the car, and I'll use what I have with me and just get it done. And yes, the sound quality in some of those episodes probably was not as good. I can guarantee it wasn't as good. But I bet a lot of you guys probably didn't even notice. And, I would record it right onto a micro SD card on the digital recorder. Then I would be able to take it into the house, put it into the computer, into my, regular podcasting software that I use, and edit it and do all the other stuff and clean it up and all that sort of thing. And the point is that I made it a priority so I would get it done. So the same thing, I've been trying more consciously to get myself out of my own rut as far as YouTube videos go. And I've been watching a lot of YouTube videos lately, and the different styles and different things that a lot of the YouTubers that in the lawn care industry do. And I've been experimenting. If you guys have seen some of the YouTube videos, I've done, like a truck talk type vlog. I've done, just different types of things, and trying to do, just experimenting with different types of videos and finding what's comfortable for me, just to get started, just to get content out there. So you find a way. You will find, if you set it as a priority, you find a way. But there's, it's so easy for you to play games with yourself. Another game that I always play is, when I think about doing something like a YouTube video, I will, finally set my mind, okay, I got some time. I can do a video at this time. And this is what I'm going to do the video. And, I'll get to that moment in time. And then it'll be like, well, okay, what do I do a YouTube video on? I have no idea. What should I talk? What should I make a video on? And, I'll be sitting there and I'll be thinking about it. And the next thing you know, the time has passed. And now I don't have enough time to do that YouTube video. That chunk of time that I could have easily banged out a 5-minute video and got the footage I needed is now gone. And, I'm either summoned, or, the kids are asking me to do something or to take them somewhere or something like that. Or I have to start dinner, or, something happens and the moment has passed. And that procrastination has cost me another day and another step forward in the things that I want to accomplish. So we go back to that lesson of, if you want to do something, whether it's make a YouTube video, a podcast, do Facebook Live, whatever it is, or build your lawn care business, then you need to take the first step and have the discipline. And like that lesson that I heard this week of, if you don't know what the first step is, then you just figured it out. Because the first step is to figure out what the first step is. And that just rang so true with me. So I sat down and figured out, well, what's the first step for me? Because the excuses of, I don't have the right camera, I don't have the right lighting, I don't have the right equipment to do the job, they're all self-sabotaging excuses. I don't have a fancy camera that I can use, but I've got a cell phone. And it's a fairly modern cell phone. I use an iPhone 7 Plus, so it's not the newest model, but it's a fairly good model. It'll record in 4K if need be. Of course, it's not going to compare to, a large fancy DSLR camera. but it'll make do. I also have a GoPro action, camera type clone type camera. And, the video quality on that, if the lighting is correct, which as long as you're outside, it's fantastic quality. And the biggest downside to that is the audio quality. Well, I've corrected that. I've added an internal microphone jack. I can now add lavalier mics or shotgun mics or whatever I want to that action camera, and have both audio and video quality. But up till that point, I can't even tell you how much memory cards I have full of actual footage of me trimming or mowing or all sorts of stuff that I was doing and that I want to put together for videos, but the audio quality isn't the greatest. So I either have to put it to music or I have to talk over it and do it that way. But you find ways to get that stuff done. So I was thinking about, with these YouTube videos and those occasions where I'll have some time and I want to do a video, and what I can do to not let that time slip away. And that's to plan ahead. So instead of, sitting there at that moment in time where I have 5 minutes to record a video and end up wasting that time because I get to that point and then I'm thinking about, well, what should I talk about? And then the time quickly passes and then there's no time to actually do the video. So the first step is to figure out what the first step is. And for me, I figured out that the first step is to write down, make a note in my phone on YouTube videos to create, and make a list of all of the videos that I want to create. And interestingly enough, when I'm sitting, say, at my daughter's soccer practice, and I'm sitting in the car watching them practice, how quickly, when I just take that moment, the ideas start to flow. And, quickly I had, 10 ideas on 10 different videos to do that I could easily create quickly. In some respects, some of them will be more involved, but other ones can be quick 5-minute little videos. So, that first step, I figured out that first step, and that first step was to write it down. So now when another opportunity comes up where I have 5 minutes and I can record a video, I can just open my phone, look at the list, and check something off. And just get it done. And put it out there. So are you self-sabotaging yourself? Because I'll tell you, once you start to put into motion those things and you start to consistently do those things, you will get the rewards back. And I'll give you an example of this. I've talked about how much I love podcasting, but I also discuss how apprehensive I've been about doing those interview episodes at first. And I made excuses about why at first I didn't want to do interview episodes, because it's too hard to schedule. It's, I got to rely on somebody else to show up, to do this, to do that. And they're all excuses on that. And really, it probably was more stemming from being shy and not being comfortable talking to people. And, you guys kept asking and kept I would ask for suggestions. Well, what do you guys want me to talk about? Are there show suggestions that you guys want me to discuss? And you guys kept this reoccurring theme of, you should do interviews. And I kept resisting until finally I relented and decided that, okay, I will try an interview. And, we all know how that turned out. The interviews were fantastic. I thoroughly enjoyed doing the interview episodes. And they are probably some of my most favorite episodes out of the whole podcast. And I know that a lot of you guys listening absolutely enjoy the interview episodes and enjoy my style of presenting the interview episodes. I know this because of the feedback I've gotten on those interview episodes. And I think back to each and every person that I have interviewed and how I consider these complete strangers that, for the most part, I never knew before, other than just seeing their Instagram feed or watching their YouTube videos and being drawn to them for some reason. And, reaching out and inviting them to do the podcast. And I think about how with each and every one of them, I consider them all personal friends. And, when I get some of these past interview episode guests and they're texting me on my, personal phone number and asking me questions or maybe advice or experiences that I've had with certain things, I'm just so honored that they would, that they value my opinion. And the same way that I value their opinion when I watch their videos, or, I keep coming back. The reason that you subscribe to somebody's YouTube channel, because you enjoy what they're putting out there. And it was a very unexpected result for me, being so introverted and being so shy. That would be the most enjoyable part of my podcast, was the relationships that I've built with these people. And it's probably, like I say, going right back to the very beginning of this episode, why I'm so, sad that I can't go to GIE. Is because it's not seeing the equipment. It's not talking to the manufacturers, although, of course, if it's a manufacturer that I've worked with on this podcast who has sent me items to review and things like that, then there is that relationship. There is that correspondence back and forth. And yes, those are people that I now want to meet, because as a direct result of, I now know what happens when you do reach out, when you do make a connection with somebody, is that friendship that starts to build. And like I say, that's the saddest part about this, for me, not being able to go to GIE, is not being able to be face to face again with some of these guys that I've interviewed on the podcast. And, in a lot of these cases, there's been podcast guests that I've talked to, You may hear an hour and a half episode or a 2-hour episode, and in the background, in some of these cases, I was on the phone with that person for 4 hours. And, we would hit the stop button and end the episode and continue talking because we were just having so much fun. And, like I say, it's a benefit, a unexpected, for me at least, being so shy, to get something back so enjoyable that, when I think about those relationships that I've built with those interview guests and the value in sharing their stories with all of you who listen, it literally makes my heart sing to think about that. And, you just have to make it a priority. Don't self-sabotage yourself. Don't come up with 101 excuses on why you can't do something in your business. If you want to be successful in your business, in your lawn care business, what is it that you want out of it? If you can't figure out the first step, then start at the last step. Start at the end result. What is it that you want? You want a business that has, a gross revenue of such and such, with this much profit, with this many employees, with a shop and an office and all that. Is that what you want? Then work your way backwards. What's the step before that? And then what's the step before that step? And work your way all the way back to where you are right now. And you'll have a map to work forward from. You'll know each of the steps that you need to go to. And yes, it might not always work out that way, but at least it'll get you started in that right direction, in that right trajectory. I think the last sort of thing I want to touch on with this is just when you sit and you think about your goals and you think about what you want. Don't compare yourself to others. Don't, make remarks that try to bring somebody else down to justify your own inaction. But instead, be quiet with yourself and truly be honest with yourself and think about what's holding you back. And for every excuse or reason that pops up in your head about what's holding you back, think about a way around it. For example, I don't do YouTube videos because I don't have a good camera. Answer: I've got a cell phone and I can record on that. I record on my cell phone, but there's not enough lighting and everything's grainy. Answer: stand by a window, go outside. There's always excuses. Everybody's at home. I can't record a podcast. Answer: go sit in the car in the garage and use a digital recorder or the voice memo app on your phone. There's always a solution to the problems. You just have to be willing to want to put them into motion. Take the time, figure out the steps to whatever it is that you want to achieve, and start the ball rolling. So I think that's it for this week. Hopefully you guys found some value from that. If you're going to GIE, I wish you guys, like I said, safe travels. Hope you guys all have a blast. I will be eagerly watching and anticipating the videos that you guys will be putting out to sort of let me, come along for the ride with you guys and watch the content you guys will be putting out. So hope you guys all have a great time. And like I said, that's it for this week. Here's to wishing you guys all overwhelming success and freedom in your lawn care business. Bye for now.